And here's the beginning of the next project. I picked this up a couple days ago. It's pretty much the hull only. I'm going to go source a trailer for it tomorrow. And I'm working on a motor. Not sure what I'm going to get yet. 35 to 50 horse. You know, it looks pretty scuffed up and rough. But after looking at it a little closer, the hull's in really good shape. The transom, I'm just in the process of taking it out. Cut up some new 3/4 ply for it. And might remove these sort of decorative aluminum pieces. I don't think they serve much function other than for some, they had sprayed some flotation under there. But I'm going to fill up the bottom with pool noodles underneath the wood that I'll put in here. Whoever had it started taking that side trim out and scraping away. Looks like over the years the bulkhead here or whatever platform took on water, swelled, and sort of moved it away a good 2 inches. So that piece is coming out as well today. Then I'm going to pressure wash the inside and kind of have a look at what to do after that. I forgot my tripod for the camera, so I'll do little bits and pieces and then bring it back as I go. I drilled out the rivets and took out one 5/16 bolt on each side to get these 3, and took off this top aluminum trim. Same on the other side. See, this piece may hold the wood in a little bit, but I'm going to try to pry out these nails. I think the wood's rotten enough that hopefully then I can maybe get in from underneath, knock out a couple of more bolts here. Somebody took most of all except one nut off, and then maybe take a hammer and drive up from underneath to get it out. So I'll play with that and then bring you back. So I think I've removed most of the nuts and bolts. I drilled out the rivets on each side here and the other side. I've knocked this end loose. So that pops out. There's bolts that go through the plywood on the transom and this 2x4. That one comes out there. There's that one there. So one up, one here. But those 3 don't come out the other side. So I'm assuming that it goes through the back of the transom wood and suck this in. Then they set the transom in place and then put these side pieces on. So I may have to fire up my grinder and probably cut it along there and down there. I'm going to remove this anyway. I don't really see its purpose. I kind of like the cleaner look that's up front, and I'll finish that off, I don't know, with something. Worry about that when I get to it. So yeah, I think maybe I'll drill out a couple of one rivet here and then cut this and peel it out, and then perhaps I can lift this wood out, and once it's out I'll use it as a template to cut up and build a new a new one. Okay, again, sorry I didn't have my tripod, so I'll just bring in and out as I get various stages close to completion. Okay, I kind of propped the camera up. I don't know how long it'll stay. It'll vibrate out of here. But I'm going to try cutting this back and then down. Okay, well, it should be relatively free. I need to get a pry bar. It's kind of glued in place with some of that crap. Yeah, she's a little rotten. I'll try to get in here with the grinder and knock that nut off, because it's so rusted up when I try turning it or loosening it, it just spins it on this side. Well, the wood support for the transoms out of the boat, it has seen better days. Imagine it's been in there, 45 to 50 years though. Nothing looks overly corroded or rotten. Little stained, little rust, but that's to be expected. I'll probably pressure wash this out and then drill out all these rivets and knock this out of the way, and then I can start designing whatever it is it's going to be. I still have to take that bulkhead out, but well, that wasn't bad. There were just 3 screws, and then I just peeled this up. Hang on to it so I can use it as a template to fit the wood, because I think I'll probably run a wood deck. Probably the length of this, from about midway. From that point, there's these 2 supports. Maybe a deck to here and then drop down. Hard to say. I drilled a couple. I'll try and hold the camera while I drill this one. These are all sort of center punched, so it works, makes it kind of handy. Yeah, that's not too bad. I'm going to carry on. I got another 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 times 2. So another 40 of these to do, and then I'll turn the camera back on. Okay, I got all the rivets drilled out, and now I'm just going to see if I can knock this loose. Well, it looks like I got 2 more screws here. Got to take out this handle, and then it should drop down. That's about all this little bit driver will handle. Okay, we'll see if this pops. And it's out of there. I'll do a little scraping and cleanup. Next on my list of things to do is carve out all of this stuff. However much fun that's going to be. So I'll pick away at this. Ooh, nice smell coming out of this stuff. It's been in there for a few years. I'll pick away at this and again bring you back once it's as completed as it's going to get. Well, here it is partway through. I don't know, 20-30 minutes of work and probably another 30 to 40 to go. Here's the aftermath of getting rid of the bulkhead foam. I used a Honda Power Mate Coleman Power 8 3500 PSI with the cutting nozzle on it, and it did a really good job of getting rid of the majority of all the stuck on, I don't know, glue and foam and other things. So that's all stripped out. I'll have a little bit of cleanup with a vacuum once the water dries. But the hull is ready to start putting back together. Something I'm looking forward to, because I can kind of create the boat I've always wanted, as opposed to working with what some manufacturer put together. So not sure what it'll be. It'll probably go through a few different iterations and ideas and changes, so might be pretty simple to begin with, because it is August and I would like to get out fishing this year. Don't know if that'll happen, but and then can redo it or finish it off next spring. I traced out the old transom as good as I could onto some plywood. I went with birch for 2 or 3 reasons. Birch has a lot more, or seemed to have 2 or 3 more laminations than the other plywoods. It's got a nice smooth finish, you know, nice look, although it's going to be all beat up. And it was about $26 cheaper per sheet, so gonna go with that for now. Traced out 2 pieces, put wood glue down, and then drove in about a dozen number 6 screws just to hold it while the glue set. So now I'm just going to drop it into place and mark out where all the bolt holes go. The other thing I did was seal all the wood with Thompson water seal. And the 2x4 will sit on top with carriage bolts to give it some horizontal or lateral, whatever strength. Then after I sand and paint this, it will be put into place. So I'm just going to clamp it so nothing moves and mark out the holes from the various points. Then I think I'll drill the holes out using a drill press to keep them sort of square and true and all that stuff. And pop a few bolts in. So I used the drill press to get these 3 3/8 holes nice and true. Held it up against the transom when I was with it in the boat. Partially drilled through, and now I'm just going to finish off for the carriage bolts. The other thing I did while I had it in there was mark out the top of the cutout for the transom. Drive those in as far as they'll go. There's a second one. And the third one. And stick the fender washers and the lock washers and nuts on. Just tightening these up a bit. Then I think I'll take the cutoff wheel and knock off the excess thread. These will probably have to be tightened as time goes on and the wood maybe dries out and shrinks a bit. So now I'll drop it in the boat. And I've pre-drilled the end holes that'll come through the transom, the metal, or the aluminum I should say. Finish punching those through and put those bolts in. Realized I better jigsaw out the transom while I have it out the top of it. in place as much as it's going to be. Still have to, we'll treat the top here with that Thompson water seal. I'm going to drill through and put these tie down hooks at the back just to help hold everything in place while I do all the remainder of the drilling and bolting. Just to help hold everything in place. Time for the end carriage bolts. They might not come through in exactly the same place, but that's okay. I think I might mix up a little epoxy. Need a little longer bit. I'll have a look around, but I might have to just weld a 1/2 inch shank onto the end of one of these to accommodate. I have to go through 3.5 inch 2x4 as well as 1.5 inch transom wood, which is 5 inches, and this is just 5 inches. And earlier I mentioned that I needed longer drill bits to get through the transom. I could go buy one, or I can just make one. Well, that should be true enough. We'll do the same with the 1/4 inch, and I'll be able to finish off drilling those holes in the hull. Now I'm going to finish drilling through some of these transom bolts. I made my 2 extra long bits by just welding some bolts or bar stock to the bit. And there it is out the other side. Little bit different point than where the original came through. I'm going to have to coat a few of the older drill holes with epoxy anyhow. That'll do it for now. Probably have to tighten it up a bit once the wood shrinks. And I'll pop the second one through. Now to do up the 1/4-inch ones. I'm trying to make a decision right now whether to begin the drilling from the inside the boat out, or to try to use these holes and hope I hit the right place on the inside. It's kind of a toss-up. I'll maybe try one from out here and see what happens, because it'd be nice to use the same holes again, but they're not squarely spaced, so that kind of tells me that when they drilled them, they drilled from the inside out. Kind of don't want to end up with too many holes on the back side, extra ones, although I'm going to have to epoxy a number of them anyway. But at the same time, I don't want to miss the holes on the brackets on the inside. So we'll try one and see what happens. Well, it might be a little of both. Drill from one side, then the other, and yeah, when they originally put this together, I don't think they hit it at 90 degrees. So I'll sort of work with what I got. Maybe I'll show you what I'm working with from the inside. And when I drill from the back, hopefully on one of these it'll pop through. Not yet. Now this one was close. Anyhow, I'm going to do that another 14 to 18 times, and then I'll bring you back. All the stainless steel carriage bolts are where they are supposed to be. Got all the nuts on and tightened up. So I think the next thing is I'm going to go dump the boat off and finish up welding a bunch of little odds and sods on the trailer. Got to build shock brackets, fender brackets, light brackets, finish welding up some of the tacks that I put on earlier. So I'll get rid of the boat and bring you back when I got the trailer ready to finish up. So whoever had this before me started the project, sanded down some of the hull, and then looks like they probably got tired of it, so I almost wish they wouldn't have started sanding, because I would have just left it sort of beat up. I don't mind that look at all. It's just a fishing boat. Having said that, that just looks weird and if I left it this way, so I'm going to paint I roughed it up with 60 or 80 grit, sort of patched or filled in a couple of places where there were some divots and a couple of small cracks, and I'll finish sealing those from the inside. Filled in some of the not needed holes at the back here on the transom, and I taped it off, and I'm just going to get ready to hit it with some good old trim clad aluminum. I thought that'd probably be the best choice for, I don't know, keeping it looking somewhat original or authentic. Anyhow, I'm not going to leave the camera on when I paint, so I'll bring you back once I've got a coat on. We'll see what it looks like. So here's the completed product. You know, it's not terrible. There's a couple of spots here where there were some divots. They must have dropped it or hit something. So I tuned those up, cleaned them out, and cleaned everything with acetone, and then sort of leveled out the divots with marine epoxy. Got the back done. It's all silver or aluminum. Again, here there's a bit of a crack, so I took off the old epoxy, buffed it, cleaned it with acetone, put on new marine epoxy. Here there looked like there might have been a crack, so I patched it anyway. And then once I'm done and I flipped it over, I'm going to put a patch on over that with epoxy using aluminum from the other side. The thing I like about this aluminum paint is it goes on easy. It'll stick to damn near anything. It seems to last longer, maybe something to do with the pigments in the composition of it in the aluminum compared to some of the other trim clads. But and it lasts a long time. Plus it matches the boat, so that helped. So yeah, that's the quick boat tune-up on the bottom anyway, and yeah, maybe give that 24 hours, 48 hours to set. Next couple days we're supposed to have 30-degree weather, so 90 Fahrenheit thereabouts. So I'll let this bake in the sun for a day or two, and then flip it over, put it back on the trailer, and start mounting or figuring out how I'm going to mount the Suzuki. The leg length on this 40 horse is 18 inches from the transom mount to the underside of the, I think they call it an anti-cavitation plate. This measures 21.5 from transom, the existing transom, to the bottom of the boat. So I'm going to take off about 2¼ inches, have that cavitation plate above the bottom of the boat, about 1/4 inch. It all should work out. I don't know what they had on here before. Obviously something with a longer leg, but I've marked it out. So I got the contour here. I'm going to 45 it on both sides. It'll just be easier to sort of cut out and bend the channel that I'm going to cover this with. Okay, let's see what kind of mess I can make. Well, so far it's kind of straight. Well, that's out of there. I'll touch up the paint with the aluminum. That's the nice thing about it. It's cheap and easy to tune up the paint. And then I'm going to wood seal this with that Thompson water seal, and maybe drop the motor into place just to see how things start to fit. So I was trying to figure out why this handle felt a little loose. These are new nuts, but what I found was there was only a nut on this stud, so you know, it wiggled a bit, which loosened everything else up. But when I took it apart, and thank goodness I did, I don't know how well you'll see here, but this cable's all frayed. So better to find out now than when I'm out in the middle of the lake. So I'm going to take a couple minutes and see if I can't pop this cable off and get it disconnected from the carb. Just going to try setting the motor in place and see if my measurements were close. I ended up driving those handle pins out. This will just make it that much more easier. So I popped the motor off. Out of that old side rail I had, I cut a new transom cover, and I'm just beginning, I clamped it in place, and I'm just beginning to beat it into submission so it'll fit these bends. Then I'll nip it out with tin snips and get these bends in place. Well, that's a pretty good fit, so I think I'll run a screw in here. Number 12 stainless by 1 inch. That should help hold it. The next fitting point is right here. It's going to go down at a 45. So I'll cut these at about, eyeball them at about 22.5 degrees. That's pretty close. The next bend is at 3 3/16 of an inch. We'll set it on 1. The next cut's on 12. I'll put a screw there and one there. I think I'll place this one as close as possible. that one ripped a bit. Oh well. Sometimes it just is what it is, so I'll clip this off and clean it up with a file. After all, it's just a fishing boat. And I'll put the last screw in. Once I paint this, you'll never even notice that little divot. Next, I'm going to start working this edge to bend over the front of the transom. So that's going to be kind of noisy, so I'll get that done and out of the way, and then we'll see what to do next. So I'm going to set this cap back on and then commence with the beading. And the forming of, or wrapping this over, is just a matter of, I'm using a dead blow rubber mallet. Just getting down to the last little bit here. Well, that'll help keep some of the rainwater and whatnot off. Well, there's a somewhat finished product. I still need to put paint on it. Other than that little boo-boo, that's what the inside looks like. You're just drilling in for the 3/8 mounting bolts. Looks like I can catch part of the old hole down here. And this side appears to be quite a bit off. Hard to say how they mounted that last motor. Oops, the camera shut itself off. Must have sat dormant for too long or something. Anyhow, I got the bolts in. It's all bolted solidly in place. So I got two places I want to patch. The one's right back here. You might see the remnants of the previous holes. I did epoxy it with marine weld JB stuff from the outside. And now I've scoured and cleaned and wire brushed the inside, and I'm just going to put an aluminum patch over it. This is where the transducer for the fish finder was. And then I've got another spot over there where there's a crack. So here's the patch. And I think what I'll do is butter the patch and probably get epoxy all over my fingers. But I'm going to put it on fairly heavy. Well, that should have that one. I'll go butter up the other one and stick it on. Again, get a good thick layer on the patch. Push some into that crack. I'll maybe find something to put on top of that just to weight it down for an hour or so till it tacks up. Then I'll pull the boat back outside. It's supposed to have a few more days of 30°C weather, so it should set up quite nicely. I'm gonna try firing up the Suzuki Q, but before I do, just going to pop this carb bowl drain out. Yeah, just going to try squeezing some. The filter just filled up. There we go. Okay, looks good and clear coming out the bottom of the bowl. No dirt particles or anything, so that's positive. So that's back in. I think I'll choke it and pull it. There might be a joke in there somewhere. Got the bucket filled up with water, plus I've got the ears on. I'll turn the flow on if it fires up and run it for a bit. Here goes the inaugural attempt to start it. Pull the choke on. I think maybe I'll pop the plugs out, see if gas is getting to the cylinders. See if these are wet. They appear to be. I did have this cover off last week and found a blown fuse, so I'm going to pop it apart and see if it blew again. It's down here. Pull. That still looks good. So I had a look or notice that some of this wiring, I don't know if that's a factory fix or not. It doesn't look like it. That doesn't look factory either. So try to figure out what is going on here. Okay, so wouldn't you know it, when I had the camera off and I gave it one final pull and it fired right up. Still something a little strange about this wiring. It sort of loops on about 4 or 5 feet of wire to a Mirette and then comes back through this fuse to the rectifier. Because after doing some Googling last night, it looks like, from what I can surmise, this white one's the lead to go to a charging system for a battery if you have it, and this black should have always been tied into ground. So I'm going to put an eyelet back on it and tie it back to the ground. So I'm going to do a test on this rectifier, and then once I fire it up, I'll see if this is actually putting out, 12 or 14 volts. So I'm just going to get set up, take this off. Should be able to ground it out to this. It looks like there's a number of other grounds going to it. I'll just slide some shrink tube on here. I'll crimp this one into place. And then I think I'll put a spot of solder on it. I gooped it with a little bit of solder paste. Just get it warmed up here. There we go. Don't mind my shaky hands. Okay, got some solder splattered on there, and I'm just gonna close up the heat shrink. Well, that should do it. I'll put the ground back together, and then I think I'll try testing that rectifier just to see what it tells me. I'm kind of weak on electronics. I can figure out some basic 12 volt stuff, but some of this other aspects are a little bit beyond, so I'm learning as I go. There, that ground should be tight now. So here it is a day later. I got that rectifier grounded now. So I'm going to try firing it up, see what a cold start is like on this, and then I'll test that white wire. Well, that's a pretty good start. Putting out 2.5 volts. Rev it up a bit. Putting out a little over 10 volts, so something to look into. So given it's the middle of September, actually I think it's the 16th, we got a few more good days of weather. I'm not going to get the final build done on the bottom of the boat in the next day or two, so I'm slapping a couple of temporary seats in, and tomorrow we're going fishing. Well, I got a couple of seats bolted in it. Gonna go fishing tomorrow. Got an anchor and a throw rope and full gas tank, so basically the idea is to just get out, do a little fishing. That'll wrap up this video, and I'll do the design and build on it in another video. So just gonna do its first run here. See how she fires up. Well, water pump's working good. It backed up, no problems. I still have to fashion a shifter for it, but that won't stop me from fishing. I'm gonna take it and run it a bit, Mike.